Welcome to Choose Views with Richard Chew. Get ready to dive into a world of insightful conversations and thought-provoking discussions.
As progressives, our job is to have an all-inclusive, full-on assault with all of our players.
A show that will focus on moving our political, social, economic, gender, and cultural conversation forward.
And all of our players means all of our players.
It's Choose Views. And now, here's your host, Richard Chew.
Good Friday morning, progressives, and welcome to the January 24th, 2025 edition of Choose Views. That's right, 773-763-9278, Facebook Live, TuneIn Radio, YouTube, Twitter Stream, iHeartRadio, and of course, as always, email me at richard@WCPT820.com. Been able to get back to some of you guys, and I'll be taking time over the weekend to make sure I follow up with those who have been so kind as to send me an email and say, "Hey, Richard, I need some of that stuff that you talked about. I need that clip. I need this. I need that." So make sure you email me when you have a question. Catch all of our shows by subscribing to our WCPT podcast on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. That's where you can get the short version and long version of Choose Views by subscribing to both or one or the other. Joan Esposito, of course, live, local, and progressive. Driving It Home with Patty Vasquez, The Big Picture with Edwin Eisendrath, Out Chicago, and our other shows and interviews. Also, as we always say, make sure you make your way over to heartlandsignal.com, which is our digital platform, and there's lots of good stuff there. So we want to have you make your way over there, as we say every morning. Good to be with you guys, as always. I had let me first take care of today. We have as one of our guests, Dr. Marschall Runge from the University of Michigan Medical Affairs Department. Going to be a good conversation talking about something that's a concern of all of ours. And that's our weight management and the control of that. And we'll dive into that a little bit. And I've got a couple of questions I want to ask about that as it relates to stress, which so many of us are dealing with right now. And then, of course, today we will have a quick shout from our good friend Karen Byrne from True Blue Politics podcast. Given the fact that we've got her kind of scrunched between two of our guests, she's going to chime in with us for a bit in the 7 o'clock hour. And then at 7:30, we will have our own Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson that will be calling into the show as a guest, and we look forward to talking with him. I've got some questions to ask him about a few things that are going on locally, but certainly what's happening on a national level and how Chicago fits into that conversation. Quite a week with some really wonderful folks that have been with us. Yesterday, we had State Representative Will Guzzardi, Potawatomi Nation Chair Joseph Rupnick, and Edgewater Health Director over in Gary, Latanya Woodson, talking about the importance of local issues and how they impact the nation. So it was great to have those folks with us. Our good friend Kurt Mullett from Hoosier Blue 63 on Wednesday. Make sure you check him out, guys. The things that he posts on Instagram and things that he has on Twitter are pretty amazing. So make your way over to his socials. And then Dan Summons was with us, who's a managing director of Blessings in a Backpack. And that call that with him and I can't talk this morning. And one of the vice presidents at a part school principals. Assistant principals spoke with us about their program, and I was notified Wednesday afternoon that a listener made a contribution to Blessings in a Backpack. So I'm thrilled that that connection was made. Tuesday, we had the young author of Be a Scribe, Michael Hoffman, was with us. And then Kate Lincoln Goldfinch, the attorney that is an immigration attorney down in Texas. And she's quite busy right now, as we saw with these raids that took place in Maryland and parts of New Jersey and Newark, I should say, and then up in Rhode Island as well. But she's elbows deep in the process. And then Monday we had DeMario Cooper from the Center for Popular Democracy with us, and executive director of the Sierra Club, Ben Jealous. So follow all those people. If you need names and how to follow them, just send me an email and I'll send you some links and all that good stuff. But So we've had a busy week, and I'm thankful to all of our guests for being with us throughout the course of this week, this first week of the 34-time convicted felon being in the White House, and the horribleness, that's a word I'm making up, that comes with that. But what we're going to keep doing is having our shows and having our programs be out there for you guys to listen and follow. And most particularly, more specifically, we've got our great lineup every day, and I'm thankful to be able to lead off, hand it off to Stephanie and to Tom. But then later today, as always, we've got Live, Local, and Progressive with Joan Esposito. Today she'll have North Central College political science professor William Muck sitting in for Joan, with guest co-host Phil Baker, political science professor of Keene College. They'll be taking your calls and talking to Jennifer Dresden, political strategist at Protect Democracy, and Roland Paris, professor of international affairs at the University of Ottawa and a former senior advisor on foreign policy to the Prime Minister of Canada. So that's pretty impressive. Live, Local, and Progressive, weekdays 2 to 5, Joan Esposito. And then tonight, 5 to 7, Elliot Serrano will be in for Patty Vasquez, Driving It Home with Patty Vasquez, weekdays 5 to 7 here on WCPT. Saturday, in the big picture, Edwin Eisendrath's guests are Jason Stanley, a professor of philosophy at Yale University and distinguished professor at the Kiev School of Economics, Tiffany Muller, president of the End Citizens United, and Alex Aronson, co-founder and executive director of Court Accountability, as well as Andrew Friedman, senior climate reporter at Axios. That's the big picture with Edwin Eisendrath. Saturdays 1 to 4 here on WCPT. And a reminder about our podcast. You can catch those, obviously, at our WCPT and Heartland Signal location. For our live reads, 2 to 5, of course, you can always catch us on TuneIn from heartlandsignal.com by just telling Alexa, hey, play WCPT from TuneIn. That's all you got to do. How cool is that? You can say, hey, Alexa, play WCPT from TuneIn. So have a little fun with that, guys. And for Heartland, if you aren't already, you can follow Heartland Signal on X, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, and Threads at Heartland Signal, one word. And be sure to check us out there. So just wanted to do our normal sort of reminders of where to find us and know where you can go and how you can share what we do. I had the wonderful opportunity last night of being on Sirius XM with John Fugelsang, the host of Tell Me Everything. And we had some fun, and I want to give a shout out to John. He's probably sleeping right now because he was on, John's show is on from 9 until midnight Eastern time. So I was on with John last night in the 10 o'clock hour Central time. So, but a shout out to John, and thanks to the folks at Sirius for having me on there. It was a great opportunity to talk with John and to give shout outs to our great city here in Chicago, as well as the overall progressive movement throughout the country. So it was a nice opportunity. And we'll probably do it again. So I'm looking forward to hanging with John in the future. And it was great to have him on the show with us 2 weeks ago. So there you go, guys. And I will tell you that, and we will today, obviously, with our guests, we have to keep things kind of running along as smoothly as possible. But talking about I guess the word we'll use is just the ban of TikTok, with the conversation around TikTok and communication and outlets. Here we get CPT and Heartland, and there's obviously Sirius and there, all of the folks that are doing podcasts and all the people that are doing just different forms of outreach and communication in their form of media. I've got a novel concept, an idea. Folks are talking about banning TikTok. Well, I kind of get that. I get where that's coming from. God help us if, we were to allow for Elon Musk to take over TikTok. That would be just horrible. But I got a novel idea about what to ban. The concern is about foreign entities owning our media. Well, I know he's a citizen, and Ronald Reagan, kind of put his thumb on the scale to make sure that this happened. But there's a guy who may be a citizen of the United States, but he's certainly not an advocate for the United States, in my observation, based on his actions. And that would be Rupert Murdoch. So if we want to ban something, guys, that's been harmful, and we've got evidence that it's been harmful to not only our children, but to our entire communities, let's ban Fox. Let's ban them. Trump runs his mouth about, that get rid of MSNBC. No, Donald, we're not getting rid of MSNBC. Let's get rid of Fox. They were found by a court that they lied. Not mistruths and sleight of hands and things of that nature. They lied. So let's ban Fox and leave TikTok alone. If it's about hurting our children, there's some grown folks now that have been watching Fox for 20 years that when they were teenagers, their parents were watching Fox and they ended up watching Fox. And those teenagers are now damaged because of having to watch the lies from Fox for 20 plus years. Let's ban them. Let's get rid of Fox. And so Dems, let's fight back that way. Let's have a conversation around why don't we get rid of Fox? Why don't we ban Fox? I don't see any good or any value in them. And I know MAGA and center-right trolls who follow this show and others that like to send me the cute little text messages and call in and try to pretend like they're this center, well-thinking, well-meaning person. We know you're out there all over the country. And we know that you have largely been poisoned by the garbage that comes out of Fox, that methane gas that comes out of Fox. So let's ban Fox. Let's leave TikTok alone. Yeah, Richard Chew said it. We don't need Fox. Get rid of them. They've done nothing but harm folks. All right, guys. Henry's giving me that evil eye, that professor's evil eye. Time to go to a break. All right, guys, listen, the number is 773-763-9278. When we come back, we'll hit you with some Choose Views news and things to do this weekend in Chicago. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Choose Views with Richard Chew on WCPT 820, Chicago's Progressive Talk.
Hey, guys. Welcome back to Choose Views. A little cleanup on aisle 7. I was being silly, and I said something that it wasn't bad, just to make sure that people do it the right way. You don't have to go, hey, Alexa. Just tell Alexa to play WCPT from TuneIn. That's what you do. So thanks for the little bit of a cleanup on aisle 7 from one of our folks that sent a text. Yeah, you don't have to go, hey, Alexa. Just go, Alexa. Okay, y'all know how to run your Alexa. I don't need to tell you. But tell Alexa to play WCPT on TuneIn. There you go. Got that cleaned up. All right, guys, let's talk about what's happening a little bit in our world in which we live in at the Choose News site. CNN is cutting jobs in their big reshuffle. CNN is laying off 200 people, all within the traditional TV department, and adding roughly the same number of roles in supporting its digital products. The company's CEO announced to staff yesterday in a memo, the reshuffling is part of Mark Thompson's digital expansion strategy, according to the New York Times. The network recently introduced a paywall for its website and plans to launch multiple new subscription services. NBC News is also reportedly planning to announce layoffs this week and next. The Oscar nominations have been announced after being delayed twice due to the Los Angeles wildfires. The Academy Award nominations are out, with Brutalist, Wicked, and Anora dominating the top categories, along with Netflix Emilia Perez at 13 nods. That's that's amazing. The musical is the most nominated film in the streamer's history, perhaps making this year the year Netflix finally walks away with Hollywood's top prize. But Netflix won't be airing the Conan O'Brien hosted ceremony on March 2nd. It will be telecast on ABC and viewable online on Hulu. All right, change of control seen for TikTok. As we talked about earlier, owners are exploring the possibility of changing control at the social media app that would allow its continued operation locally. According to Bill Ford, a board member at Chinese-owned ByteDance, The plan would eliminate the need for an outright sale, while a high court ruling earlier this month supported the law requiring a sale or banning. Donald Trump has since ordered an extension of the sale deadline. Get rid of Fox. Ban Fox. Store closures are expected to climb, unfortunately. Last year saw the highest number of store closures since the pandemic, according to Coresight Research. And 2025 is shaping up to be an even rockier year for retail, per the firm's report. Store closures are likely to again surpass openings here in 2025. As many as 15,000 retail locations are projected to shutter. This issue is not consumer demand, but rather the increasing concentration of business giants like Amazon, Costco, and Walmart. And the new fire outbreaks in Los Angeles are creating a little bit of shaky ground again. The Hughes fire, which quickly ripped through 10,000 acres on Wednesday, was 14% contained by the end of the day yesterday. It's the latest wildfire to hit the area since the 2-week-ago inferno devastated part of the region, killing 28 people. The fire placed nearly 40,000 people under evacuation orders, with smaller fires also breaking out in Ventura County near LA's Sepulveda Pass. That's over one of the big freeways, in case you guys don't know the area. So fingers crossed again, guys. Our weather is definitely just been crazy all over the country. And anybody that doesn't pay attention to that is either willfully not paying attention to it or in some sort of severe denial. But, let's keep our fingers crossed for the folks that are out there and the folks that are in the Southeast that are getting getting weather that is not normal for them, that is making their lives equally challenging, that, don't know about snow. And icy roads. So there you go. This weekend is here. Today is Friday, the tip of the weekend, January 24th to January 26th. Chicago Restaurant Week. Henry, let's go restaurant hopping. How about that? Let's just, roll in and say, give us some of that. This year is the 18th annual Chicago Restaurant Week, when over 470 of the city's top restaurants offer special prefix menus for lunch, brunch, lunch, and dinner. So make your way out citywide to today and tomorrow and Sunday. So that should be something. I'm sorry, today starts today and will run for the next week. So check it out, guys. Could be a lot of fun. I'm always an advocate of getting out and checking out new restaurants. The Sox Fest Live, the Chicago White Sox announced Sox Fest in a new format that reimagines a traditional convention into an immersive fan experience. Lots of words to say. Go out and enjoy a weekend if you're a Sox fan or if you're a baseball fan. If you're a Cubs fan, you can go and enjoy this because it's about celebrating baseball as well as celebrating baseball here in Chicago, which is legendary. This weekend at the Ramova Theater, 3520 South Halstead, right around the corner from the Sox Park. It's a cool theater, by the way. Also, what's happening? Chinese New Year dumpling making dinner. Join the folks at the annual Chinese New Year dumpling making dinner tomorrow at Hing Key Restaurant on the second floor. That's at 2140 South Archer Avenue. If you're in Chicago or going to be hanging around the area known as Chinatown, that's something you can take on. It could be fun. Learn something new, how to make dumplings, if you like dumplings, or at least you learn how to make them. And always make your way over to the Maggie Daly Ice Skating ribbon. That's an opportunity for those of you who like that part of the city to enjoy the skyline. Something to get out and do. Come From Away. Broadway's Come From Away is the best musical winner all across North America. This New York Times pick takes its stand here in Chicago at the CIBC Theater, 18 West Monroe Street here in Chicago. Get out and enjoy that as well, guys. And, the Bulls are playing this weekend against the 76ers. If you're into basketball, that's could be some fun. So make your way out this weekend, guys. Don't sit at home. The weather's changing, getting a little bit better. Going to be a little bit warmer. Sun's going to be out. So, if you're in the Chicagoland area, get out and do something. If you're in the upper Midwest of our big cities, get out and do something. Get out of the house. I know if it's cold, it might be challenging. But make your way out, check your calendars and see what you can do with your family and friends to offset, as John Fugelsang and I talked about last night, offset this awfulness. And I'm a big proponent of finding a way to do something that's separate from you. And that's why we talked so much this week about working with local organizations and being able to find out what they need. And by giving something to them, you end up getting something back, I believe. And that's hopefully what you guys can take on this weekend. So, all right, guys, that's a little bit of Choose Views news and also things to do here in good old Chicago and the surrounding area. So it's been a week of a lot of different things happening from, Trump coming out of the gate as we figured with pardons. And by the way, guys, make sure that we're going to try to squeeze in your calls as we can, best we can today, because we've got two guests. 6:30 shortly, we'll have one of our guests calling in, and then we've got Mayor Johnson at 7:30. So we'll try to squeeze you in and have the lines open for you. So don't hesitate to call if you got something on your mind. But that being said, when we started this week, we knew we were going to be dealing with this inauguration and this new dude being in office and all that. And they came out of the gate with what we called the shock and awe of all these pardons and these executive orders and things that just are absolutely crazy for our communities at large. But what I've been saying all week, and I'll be saying this as we go on and we continue to move forward, is this first wave, this shock and awe wave, is what we knew was coming. Doesn't make it any easier. At the same time, we have to recognize that that's their objective in that was to try to throw a knockout punch, to try to say, all right, let's hit them with everything we can and take their spirit away. That was a purpose of a lot of this. It wasn't so much the effectiveness of raiding a place in Newark or raiding a place in Maryland or raiding a place in Rhode Island. It wasn't about is that going to be effective? Because my eggs prices didn't go down, not because of anything that 34-time convicted felon did. My gas prices didn't go down for anything that the 34-time convicted felon did. At all. Not at all. So the shock and awe was designed to make the craven folks on the right feel good about the fact that they're going to go get the Mexicans and brown people. In the list that I saw, and I wasn't able to pull all the data together in this, so I'll speak peripheral about this just to be as accurate as I can. The list that I saw, Henry, of the folks that have been rounded up are all brown-skinned folks. I guess there were some Ukrainians in the mix, but that was a tip to Putin. That's all that was about. I didn't see anybody that was from any of the Central European countries in this laundry list of people that were rounded up. I didn't see any folks in those categories, and we know doggone well that there are. And many of those folks are people who have overstayed their visas, so they're here illegally, technically. But they don't look like me, so they get a pass. Anybody that's offended by that, you're offended by it because it actually, as the phrase goes, one that's offended is oftentimes the one that the message is meant for. That's a cleaner way of saying the other phrase, which I'll stay away from. But listen, guys, that's who got rounded up. You cannot tell me, just based on the numbers of immigrants that are from Central Europe, that there's nobody in that mix. And the Ukrainians that they apparently grabbed, that was a tip to Putin. That's all. Let's not be stupid here. Let's not be childish. We got enough people running around pretending that they don't know about things that are happening and trying to pretend like this didn't happen. Enough of that. So we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we have the opportunity to talk with one of those smart peoples that can talk to us about something that's a concern of all of ours. And I'm going to talk about that when we get back. 773-763-9278. This is Choose Views, guys. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to Choose Views with Richard Chew on WCPT 820, Chicago's Progressive Talk.
Hey guys, welcome back to Choose Views, 773-763-9278. Glad to be with everyone this morning. And as part of our conversation around local issues or issues that are things that everybody can tap into or find a way to tap into, we are working to do more of that. And this particular morning, this particular segment, we have Dr. Marschall Runge. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. It's Runge, correct? With the hard G, Runge?
Runge, you had it perfectly. And call me Marshall.
There you go. All right. Well, I'm gonna call you Marshall. I may slip in Doc every now and again, but I don't think you'll be offended by either one. So good to be with you this morning. Your work is amazing as Executive Vice President for Medical Affairs at the University of Michigan. You deal with something that's it's an issue that all of us have to deal with, and at the School of Medicine there, you have been a leader in the conversation around obesity and body mass index. And wow, I mean, we all look in the mirror and we have comments and observations about our bodies one way or the other. But you've really kind of leaned in hard around the conversation about body mass index and obesity. So take a moment, if you would, Marshall, and share with us a little bit about your work and share with us a little bit more specifically about what's going on with the Department of Medical Affairs at the University of Michigan.
Well, thank you. It's great to be on the show. And this is always a January topic, but I think we know more about it than usual. All of us make our resolutions, and sometimes they last, sometimes they don't. But obesity is a significant and growing problem for the United States, and it is linked to many different reasons. But at the end of the day, obesity, as it matters for diseases like type 2 diabetes, hypertension, lipid disorders, and certain cancers, even breast cancer and colorectal cancer. And the way it's been measured for as long as I've been in medicine, which is a long time, is with BMI. And BMI is a measurement that is used because it's easy. All you have to do is have a person's height and weight. But it's a very imperfect gauge of obesity. Just to give you an example I think of from time to time, Arnold Schwarzenegger. So Arnold Schwarzenegger, when he was at the peak of his bodybuilding career, had a BMI of 31. On the other hand, his percent of body fat, which is a much better measure, was about 7, really low. So was he obese? No, not at all. But under a BMI measurement with a BMI of 31, he would have qualified for obese in using the BMI approach. The last thing I'll say about this is there are many extremely accurate ways to measure BMI, to measure obesity, but most of them take technology, and it's really not what our knowledge is based on. Our knowledge is based on the relationship of obesity with diseases, and percent body fat is actually pretty easy to measure, as well as fat distribution, which is the ratio of how much fat is in your subcutaneous in your skin versus how much is inside. And when that ratio tilts in favor of visceral or inside fat, then that is also a risk. So those are two things that are easy to measure, can be done. Many of them can be done at home.
So, and first of all, it's one of those moments where I've said this before, Doc, when I've had guests on that are industry or specific experts in an area. I have to stop writing. I mean, I feel like I'm sitting in your class, and I'd rather listen than take notes because I'm like, oh my God. So, but I did get a couple notes quickly written, and one of the things that first came out, the first thing that you said, is that it's easy. And in the U.S. So I want to kind of focus on that for a second. In the U.S., do we have a health issue? Do we have a body mass or an obesity issue in other parts of the world? And we could say continents rather than isolating countries. But is that something that you see in your studies, and your information in Europe or the continent of Africa or other continents across the globe? And I know it's a big, broad question, but maybe I should ask, what are you seeing rather than if you're seeing it?
Well, unfortunately, we're world leaders in obesity. I mean, it's embarrassing for one of the wealthiest and most advanced countries in the world. But our obesity, it's been characterized as an epidemic, and I truly believe that. We have more than half of our population is either overweight and obese, and that is occurring more in European countries, in the Far East, not so much in Africa because of the impoverished population, but it's occurring everywhere. And this is a huge increase. I keep saying huge and growing. I'm not trying to make puns or word plays, but it has grown so much in the last 20 years, or 30 years. In 1990, the percent of Americans who categorized as obese was about 20%. So it's grown to over 50%. And if you go back as far as the 70s, it was even a lower number. So we've got to do something to turn it around. And part of it is we have DoorDash, we have junk food. I mean, I love all that stuff. And it's hard to control the intake. And the other is, as we've moved to less and less active lifestyles, for example, during the pandemic, so many people work from home, and you're just not walking as much. And you don't have to walk 10,000 steps a day, although that's a number that's frequently cited. But you need to keep active. But the last thing I want to say about it is, I mentioned New Year's resolutions, and I think for all of us, myself included, we just have to have reasonable goals. We can't say, January 1st, I'm going to exercise 6 days a week, and I'm going to stop eating junk food, and all looks svelte by February or March, because for 99% of us, that just doesn't work. But increasing the amount we exercise in easy ways, walking stairs, and trying to control the high-fat foods that we eat over time will make a big difference.
So it's incremental, and I'm glad you came back to that about where and what folks are eating, and really kind of a line in the sand was COVID and folks working from home and showing what dormancy can really do to our bodies and not being active. I used to say, and I think you probably would agree with this to some extent, eat less, exercise more. But the eat less part still has to be qualified, because you can eat less and still be eating not the right less food. Hydration is a big part of this conversation. And one of the things that I've said to people for years is that we think about hydration in the hot months of warm weather, but it's equally important during the winter for those of us that are in the upper Midwest and colder climates. Hydration is a big part of maintaining our weight and making sure that our BMI is not just a trigger, but it's also looking at how we go about dispelling food. And you talked about subcutaneous fat. I didn't even realize about this conversation around visceral fat, because that affects the organs, correct? Am I right in that?
Yes. And I agree with everything you just said, Richard. Do you go by Richard?
Yes, I do. Doesn't matter. Yeah, Chew. I don't, they call me everything.
I agree with everything you just said, Richard. And I think that there's study after study after study. In fact, I saw one either this week or last week in the New England Journal of Medicine. And for your listeners who don't read medical journals, and I don't blame them, that is a premier journal. And it correlated the amount of fat around the heart. I'm a cardiologist, around the heart, and not just the relationship of blockage of the arteries that might require a stent or a bypass surgery, but about their failure to be able to dilate when you exercise. So when you exercise, the arteries in your heart normally dilate. If they're all encased in fat, they don't. And that just makes it harder to exercise. So those correlations just keep coming in. And that's the concept of visceral fat.
Got it. So I will say this to folks that I think need to hear it. It's easy. Our diet is easy, and that's part of the challenge. So one of the things that I've noticed in the last, I'm going to say 10 years, because that's an easy number to pick, is the number of pre-prepped food companies where you order your food and you get a box of food and you get 5 meals for the week, sort of thing. I have this is probably some of my ego coming out, Doc, but I'm going to say it because I think you can chime in on this. It's great that that's a way for people to have a better way to eat, or at least a more timely way to eat, or however people are framing that. But I've seen that it's expensive, and that we've kind of lost our way in terms of folks knowing how to cook their own food. How is that contributing? And I don't want you to have to nag on any particular company, but that process, how is that affecting the weight management of our country?
I think it's a big problem. And at the time that I was beginning my career and was doing research around heart problems, I had a good friend who became a food chemist, and we used to talk about it. And food chemistry has been able to find this. It's called, I forgot what it's called exactly, but it's like this magic combination of sweet and sour that just makes it so difficult to put that. You name it. And that's not unintentional. But I think we need to work on how can we redirect that. I think also there's food triggers. And Richard, I'm speaking to somebody who I've been up and down and struggled with my weight, and I understand it when people and patients talk to me about it. But these food triggers, I've virtually stopped watching TV, not because I don't like TV. I only watch sports on TV because these commercials, you can't sit there watching TV in the evening without commercials of this food. It just looks incredible. And I want to, like I said, I want to call DoorDash or somewhere. But so.
Uh-oh, did we lose you, Doc? Oh, Doctor, are you there? Did we lose him?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. Okay, great. You're back.
Okay, sorry.
Keep going.
As you indicated, healthy food is not hard to prepare. Now, I'm terrible in the kitchen, but it's not hard, and it's much less expensive than the prepackaged foods you're talking about. So I think those are good, but certainly not everybody can afford that, or maybe even wants to do that. So I think we have to make this kind of food, we have to prioritize it. If I can bend your ear about an interesting example, there are these new weight loss drugs that are called GLP-1 and agonists. They stimulate this GLP hormone. And there was a essay about following around a person who was using that medication, which has many effects. One of which is to reduce surges of dopamine you get when you eat high-fat food or high-sugar food. And so they followed somebody around in the grocery store who had been very overweight, started taking these foods, and instead of stopping at all the aisles with chips and cookies and the ice cream part of the freezer section, he just went it changed his appetite habit. I'm not saying everybody would have that if you try one of these drugs, and they're expensive, but I think changing those appetite habits is important, and I think it's a different formula for almost every different person. But it takes a lot of perseverance, and exercise helps. Exercise does proven to reduce your drive to eat sugary and high-fat foods.
I can tell you for a fact that the more I exercise, the more my cravings go down. I wasn't saying my appetite goes down. There is a difference. My cravings go down the more I exercise, and that's something that for a goofy guy like me, I will proudly raise my hand and say that's the key to. I've had days like so many of us have where I haven't eaten the best, but I also exercised that day, and what I found to be the case is post-exercise, my cravings went down. I did crave something that was more substantive, that was protein-based, less carbohydrate-based, and frankly more water based. So the key for me, and I'm sure for so many people, is exercise. Now, granted, and you can chime in on this from the expert level, not everybody can get past that barrier of exercising, and that could be walking or it could be going to the gym or everything in between, to get past that barrier of physical pain. And some of it's because they may already be struggling with a certain amount of weight or obesity. So getting past that that's like, I praise the people who have physical issues and deal with that pain and break through that to make sure that they can continue to exercise. And I'm curious as to what you're seeing, if there's a trend more now that we're have come out of COVID, where you're seeing people out walking more. Are you getting any sort of information from your patients in that space? What are you seeing?
I'm definitely seeing more, which I think is a great trend. I live in Ann Arbor. It's not 3 degrees here. I was listening to your broadcast for a few minutes before, but it's cold. And if I go over to our local mall, it was a desert during COVID. Now there are people out there, and they're friends. They're talking. They're walking around. They're not speeding around. They're just walking. Mm-hmm. Also, I think during COVID, more and more people got things they could use to exercise at home, whether it was floor exercises with a mat or a stationary bicycle or something that supports their weight. And I think if you have joint problems due to obesity, or at least worsened by obesity, which is very, very common, doing exercise that takes some weight off makes it much easier. If you have access to a pool, walking in the pool, I see a lot of people in the fitness center that we are a member of. They have a pool, and people sign up for a lane, and they're in there with 2 or 3 of their friends just walking back and forth. It takes all the weight off of it.
Yeah.
So I think there is an interest in this for sure, and I think COVID was devastating, as most of us would agree. So now is the time to be thinking about can you incorporate exercise for all the reasons you mentioned in terms of suppressing your drive for food, et cetera.
Can you talk about stress? Obviously, we're in a stressful time. I'll just say it without tap dancing around it. We're in a stressful time, politically, socially, economically, for so many folks. And how does stress play into this conversation around obesity and not so much BMI, but frankly around obesity and weight control and weight management?
Well, I couldn't agree with you more about the stress we're living in right now and the chaos, intentionally induced chaos. But I think that stress is a really important driver of eating, because it's so easy to grab something sugary or fatty, and you get a temporary relief from stress, and that is true, and it's due to these surges of dopamine that I mentioned earlier in the brain. That's a brain hormone. But as you have observed, that can be quelled, can't be stopped, but it can be at least reduced by other activities, like doing some exercise. You touched on another topic that I just want to comment on. It's related to stress. So I have now, over the last 6 months or so, been sure that I'm always carrying some sort of low-calorie, high-protein bar with me. And when I get, whether it's stressed or whether it's just plain old hungry, if I eat one of those and just can, fill my stomach for 5 minutes or 10 minutes, is way lessened. And so, as I said before, it's different for everybody. And what works for me may not work for anybody else. But I think picking out some of these tricks, and there's lots of literature about things that you can do to try to suppress that urge to eat when you're under stress.
So what is the how do I want to put this? If folks are challenged with food management, and I'm trying to be delicate in saying this, but they may not have the economic certainty to, quote unquote, have better food. or have food that's going to be healthier for them. What are some of the things that you've found work when you've encountered or working with a patient in that space?
I think it's really helpful for either in person or online or Chat GTP, you name your approach, for people to actively seek nutritional advice. For example, I probably like Chat GPT more than I should, but you could type in, I'm overweight, I want to improve my diet, but my income is such that I can't buy expensive or even semi-expensive foods. And it'll give you advice on that. So I think either through your doctor's office or your health center, almost all health centers of any sort have this sort of connection with nutrition, and having somebody you can talk to and really, help them understand, well, I don't like broccoli, or I do like broccoli, but there's a lot of the things I don't like. And they'll give you alternatives. If I go to the mall and watch people walk around, some of them have a bag of carrots there, those little carrots that they're chomping on. So it's possible, but you have to exert a little effort to find what are alternatives that you would find edible that would help you with staying away from these chemically engineered foods. That's what I'll call them.
Yeah, good point. Doctor, it's been great having you with us this morning. I could talk to you for a long, long time about this because it's a common, there's things that are common to us, irrespective of where we sit politically, socially, and economically. And one of them is our health care and the care of our health. And certainly weight management is a big part of that. And I appreciate you being on the show this morning. I appreciate the work that you're doing. And you're doing it at one of my favorite places of education, higher education, the University of Michigan. So, Dr. Marschall Runge, I appreciate you being with us this morning. I look forward to having you back. Maybe when the weather breaks and we get into the spring, we can have you back and talk about some things that people can be doing for themselves as they get into the weather change and start to look at, spring activities and summer activities. Does that sound okay?
That sounds great. And thank you, Richard. And at the risk of annoying some of my good friends in Ohio, let me just say, go Blues.
Right on, Doc. Have a great day. Thank you for all your hard work, and we appreciate you being on the show this morning.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye now. Yeah, guys, this could have been a further nerd out moment for me because as we talk about self-care and we in this crazy, as he said, did he say self-inflicted? I forgot how he led, but basically chaos that we're in. We want to be able to take care of our health. And when I've said, and you've heard so many people that have been on the show in different capacities talk about self-care, one of those is managing your food, managing your weight, managing, I hate to say diet, but just, your food management. And we all have skin in the game when it comes to that. And so I appreciate Doc being with us this morning. His name is Dr. Marschall Runge. He is the Executive Vice President for Medical Affairs at the University of Michigan and the medical school and CEO of the Michigan Medicine. So someone that you want to follow and learn a little bit more about what he does. And I'm glad he was able to be with us this morning. I didn't Henry, this was, again, one of those moments. I didn't realize the impact of fat around your organs. And if they're not, it's common sense. Again, it's one of those things when you stop and think about it, you go, oh, yeah, that makes sense. That if your organs are not, if they have too much subcutaneous fat around them, it's not just what we see, in terms of the love handles or the belly and all that stuff that we all talk about. It's the fact that your organs are fighting to get the fat from around them. That's fascinating. That's really fascinating. So as I wrap this up, guys, what I'll say that I took away from the doc, that let's not make this easy on ourselves. Okay. Now, nobody get their feathers ruffled on what I'm about to say. We all need to stop and say, what am I really eating? Okay. We all have to do that. I love my chips. I ain't gonna lie. I love my certain cookies and all that. Let's be honest about that stuff. But what he was saying is subtle changes can make a big difference, incremental changes. And preparation is another one of these things that I think that we have to be mindful of. And in this challenging time, the internal take care of is as much as the mental take care of, and then the physical take care of. And so, who was it? It was, I'm drawing a blank on her name. She said it the other day. LaTanya Woodson said this yesterday, mind, body, spirit. That's how we really put some, no pun intended, meat on the bones when it comes to taking care of ourselves and self-care. Mind, body, spirit. And what we put in our mouths and put in our tummies, let's all do a better job of that. Let me reach out and say this to all of us. Let's, as part of the care in dealing with these next 4 years, let's make sure that not only are we focusing on the mental side of it, but let's make sure that we are doing a little bit better job, incrementally better job of what we're eating and what our physical activities are, that we're getting out, we're walking, we're doing the things that we can do. I promise you that I'll do my best to lead in that space and be a reminder to you in that space. Let's take Dr. Ms. Richardson's perspective in terms of mind, body, spirit, and put that all together. And let's take Dr. Runge's expertise and say, you know what? I am going to be a little bit more mindful. I'm not going to make it easy. I'm going to find ways to improve what I'm eating and get a little bit more active. And I'm not preaching. I'm preaching, but I'm not preaching at. I'm talking to all of us about this, because this process of winning this next cycle in terms of election can be an internal win for us as well, by improving where our brains are, where our hearts are, where our spirits are. Let's find ways to be a little bit better about what we consume and how we consume it. So there you go, guys. I mean, that's just coming from me because I care. We're going to take a quick break. The number, of course, is 773-763-9278. This is Choose Views, and we'll be right back.
Welcome back to Choose Views with Richard Chew on WCPT 820 AM, where facts matter. Take it away, Richard.
Hey, guys, welcome back to Choose Views, 773-763-9278. So much to cover, so much to talk about. And, of course, over at our Heartland Signal platform and our wonderful work that our folks do over there, we've got a tremendous of Heartland Signal on X. Clips that you guys can listen to, and I'll just give you the quick rundown. Heartland Signal on X we have a clip from the South Dakota State Rep John Hughes saying that this is not a democracy. You'll hear people like Senator Amy Klobuchar's democracy, democracy, democracy. That's all you'll hear. And then he says, folks, we are not a democracy. That's pretty crazy. Where is he living? Indiana Secretary of State Diego Morales refuses to tell State Rep Ed Delaney whether he put his family on state payroll. As it turns out, he did. And the list goes on, guys. We have so many wonderful clips over there. The one from Marjorie Taylor Greene talking about building more prisons. Yeah, to put the 1,500 people that Trump let out of prison back in prison. Already some of them are getting caught. So, yes, some great information over there. I don't want to try to take you through every single one of them, but we've got a great list of items that you guys can listen to and pass on. So make your way over to heartlandsignal.com, our digital platform. One of the things that popped into my mind, Henry, when we had Dr. Runge on was he said something that just caught my ear. The New England... He was referencing where some of the data that he was talking about was coming from, or had come from. And he said he referenced the New England Journal of Medicine. And my little sarcastic brain went, because he said, I know most of you probably don't read that. And he said, and I understand why you wouldn't. And my brain went, well, wait a minute. I got an idea. Maybe stop watching Fox and get a subscription. Cancel your Fox subscription, y'all. They can't. I mean, you got to. The way that they've webbed that in, it's hard to do. So no one yell at me, but stop watching Fox and replace that with, the New England Journal of Medicine. I know that's a big push, but you get my point. Part of our fight back, part of our way of winning this is to arm ourselves not only more, but differently. So arm yourself with information that you can get from something like the New England Journal of Medicine when it talks about healthcare and care of yourself. Just a thought. I don't know, call me crazy. But in the process of calling me crazy, you may have to deal with our good friend Karen Byrne from True Blue Politics podcast that might have something to say about that.
Yeah. Speaking of crazy, hey, Karen.
You like how I did that?
I did. Crazy Karen. Yeah, crazy and Karen. I'm here.
What do you think? But what do you think about the idea of care in terms of, pick up a medical journal? Why not? Turn off Fox.
Why not educate yourself? What a novel idea.
Mm-hmm.
In the age of, lies and, propaganda, our media being bought up by, foreign-born citizens who come in and then propagandize. I mean, what,
We're
how
upset
the
about
heck
TikTok. What about Rupert Murdoch and Fox?
What about, and the thing of it is, too, with that whole thing, too, isn't it a little bit of antitrust or, as far as, Facebook does the same thing. Facebook is basically doing the same thing now. They're not protecting Americans. Mark Zuckerberg, he's not protecting Americans. Elon Musk certainly isn't, and I think that, there should be something, some sort of protections. It seems a little silly in the moment that we find ourselves in to even suggest that there's anything, remotely realistic that we can do about it, because we have an insane Republican Party that is completely in on the coup and the takeover of our country. But boy, oh boy, wouldn't that be something that, yes, if you are a foreign-born oligarch and you come to the United States and you buy different sources of media, that you are, you don't get to come here and F around.
That's
with
right.
The information that Americans are receiving. That would be really something. And then, my gosh, you're like tapping into all kinds of passions for me. And then, having the doctor on and talking about self-care, because, we had a conversation yesterday about how we're coping. This has been a really particularly rough week. And even with all of our go-tos in place that don't involve, bottles of wine or, cracking open, well, that would be, actually a healthier alternative, I think, than a bottle of wine and or, binge watching MSNBC with a bag of Doritos, something like that. It's just, it really is so beneficial psychologically too when you are exercising self-care in the way of nutrition. Yeah. And I am a novice expert, I guess, in this space, but I actually there were some health issues that my son had, and then some things that were going on with myself, and so I found this great nutrition group in Minnesota. They've got tons of locations. It's Nutritional Weight and Wellness, and their website is weightandwellness.com, and they've got a podcast, and I found them through a podcast. And this is, oh my gosh, got to be 15 years ago. Wow. And I have been working with them ever since through, the perimenopause, through the menopause, and, and just they really have a lot of, it's not so much going on a diet. It is learning how to eat differently. Mm-hmm. One tip for people, shop the perimeter of your grocery store.
Come on, Karen.
Don't go to the middle aisles. Oh man, you got me going. There's a great documentary called A Place at the Table that was put out many years ago. If people have not seen it, go watch it. It speaks so precisely about the situation that we have been in this country, and how it is such a vicious cycle. The so you have poverty, you have food deserts, right? And then what do people do when they go to the grocery store with their coupons, or to make their dollars stretch? They go and they get like the 2-for-1s. Every single one of those 2-for-1s are put out by the big food manufacturers that sell us heavily processed, heavily manipulated, quick and easy and cheap foods. And so what ends up happening is then your health deteriorates, and then you have to go to your doctor, and thanks to the ACA we have insurance now, so a lot of people can actually go see a doctor. But then it feeds into then what is the remedy, and of course you got the big pharma reps going around to the different doctors, and here's a pill to fix your problem that can have all these other side effects. And so it's not to say that if you are in a place where you are morbidly obese, that there should be something, to kind of jumpstart it and get you moving in the right direction. But there are alternatives, and I would argue that nutrition is one of them. And eating, it doesn't have to be crazy. Like I have, I'll make these turkey sausages, and I sweeten them with a little bit of maple syrup. And maple syrup has gotten a bad rap, but it actually is a good source of sweetening. And then you have your turkey sausage with maybe some mixed greens. And so now you've got a healthy protein, you've got a healthy fat. Healthy fat is okay. Okay, the problem with our processed foods and the cholesterol study that was done in the late 30s is that the food manufacturers went and did these things where they took out the fat and replaced it with salt and sugar to make the food palatable. Well, then that creates a whole other situation, and sugar has been found to be more detrimental to our cardiovascular system than fat. Yeah. So it is the type of fat that you're getting is what is important.
Because, and that's, wow, this is in the conversation, as I was saying to Dr. Runge, in the conversation of stress that we're all dealing with, we've been dealing with stress, I think, as a country. A woman that's a good friend of mine, and she was on the family meeting with us for a long time, Teresa McDonald, talked about that we are in a ongoing PTSD environment with Donald Trump. And she said this as it relates to, she's an esthetician and has a degree in biology. So I listen to what she has to say when she talks in this space. But the simple point I want to make about this, Karen, to what you were saying and what the doc was saying, is that care isn't just in any environment, isn't just the mental care. It's all of them, as Ms. Woodson said yesterday, mind, body, spirit. So in terms of the mind, yes, mentally we've got to have the support systems in place, the people in place, be willing to talk about the stresses, and like you've so often and well done pointed out, when you're feeling it and you're having a wacky day, you got to talk to somebody about that. The internal side, though, to what Doc Runge was saying, is that we have to find ways and then support each other in ways to have better internal functioning of our system, of our organs. And, I'm not preaching, y'all, but we do have to be mindful of what we put in our mouths, and we all have to be supportive of each other in that space. Right. And listen, I see an opportunity right now in the conversation around care for progressive liberal Democrats. And what do I mean by that? I see an opportunity for us to have the systems, have the desire for everybody to be feeling, looking, sounding better. And if we can do that, that's going to be one of the tools that we have in our arsenal to fight back. And so it's not just the mental part. And one of the first things I did, I put together the list of things, and maybe I should unearth that and send it out again or talk about it again in terms of the things that we should be looking to be part of our plan and going forward. And one of those was diet and exercise. Mm-hmm. And I think if we can get folks to lean into reaching out to people that you know to get help, reaching out to people that you know, and whether it be mental help, physical help, or internal, that are not just the doctors, but also the doctors and all the sources, that's a way for us to win. That's a different approach to our winning as we go forward.
Right. Well, and so much of it is, it's the chemistry. And so when your chemistry is altered in your body, it can affect your mood. It can affect everything else. And so it is really an important thing to know what are you fueling your body and your brain with. And, when you can find that balance. And by the way, working with a nutritionist or a dietitian, in my case, I found out is covered, my consultations, and I'm only doing them, once every couple of months. But those are, and I can do it via, video, via Zoom with my lady, and it's covered under insurance.
Wow.
And so, so that is covered under insurance. They do have different supplements, that I will take, my vitamin D, my, omega-3s, my GLA, my, zinc, to keep myself, my immune system up. Magnesium glycinate. I'll tell you something, everybody out there, if you want to get to sleep, if you want to relax yourself and go to sleep and it helps your blood pressure as well, magnesium glycinate. Highly recommend it.
You are going to die when I tell you this. This is the Henry, and you guys can't see because we don't have the stream on. Literally after the break, before when Doc was off and we were going to the break, Henry and I were talking. He said, "Richard, I have a question." And guess what we were talking about? We were talking about the deficiencies, the deficiency that so many Americans have with regard to magnesium. Mm-hmm. And it's if you want to sleep better, but also rest better. This is the thing that we have to build into this conversation is resting. I oftentimes tell people it's not just sleep. Sleep's important for obviously all of the REM, the parts of the conversation about our REM that play into sleeping. And I got that out of order. But what I also have to say to this is rest is different than sleeping. Resting is different than sleeping. And sometimes you have to put yourself in idle mode, mentally, physically, etc., so that you can just slow down. And then I think that so resting sometimes means, and we all know what that means, but I think we sometimes we jump past that and say, God, I got to get some sleep. Sometimes you just need to stop where you are and take a break. And right now, and I'll put it this way based on my call with John last night, we all need to get rest from this craziness that's going on. We all need to take a break from it. But what we can't do is go, and we do need to sleep in terms of this craziness that we're dealing with socially, politically, and other areas. But we can't stay asleep. Right. And my feeling is that if we rest and we recharge and we strengthen ourselves, that we will be in a better position to win this fight. And I'm not just saying this to sound all, glowy and whatnot. I'm saying that seriously. We have to be willing to look at all of the areas that will strengthen us as we go forward. And I like what you said earlier about, don't be afraid to talk to someone about something that you're struggling with. Right. That's one of the powers that we can't let go of.
Absolutely. Connection and community is going to be an imperative. You and I have spoken about it. And, it's in Timothy Schneider's book on tyranny, that one of the tools of, fascists is to isolate people and tear apart communities. And so we've already seen, I'm sure all of us have experienced, divorcing certain family members because of their political political views, and because for me it is not politics, it's personal. It is something where you are not respecting me or my family, and we don't share the same values, when we don't share the same worldview for equal opportunities and treatment of all people. Anyway. But it is finding that balance, finding, that when you are feeling a certain kind of way, and you identify what is it that I need in this moment. If it is meditation, meditate. If it is prayer, connection to spirit, do it. If it is, going to the, nearby forest preserve and walk, go do it, touch grass. I mean, we're in Chicago and, pretty cold, but I have my walking group, and so we're meeting up again at Woodfield Mall, because of course it's colder than what here. So we're going to go and walk Woodfield Mall, and Natalie's probably going to do a little bit of light shopping, and then we're going to go grab a bite to eat. But it's having that community.
Why you got to be so mean this morning, Karen? Dang, girl.
I'm just saying.
It's just, Natalie's somewhere in the universe right now going, my girl just not only threw me under the bus, she went forward and backward, and then tried to do a little, spin on me. Good God, Karen.
Listen, a girl's got to use the gift certificates that she receives, okay? So that's all I'm saying. It was like a win-win-win, situation. She's cute as can be. Anyway, but
I'm gonna do the thing that I got to do, which is get myself ready for our segment with Mayor Brendan Johnson. But I will say this to you.
Big props to him.
Yes.
Big props to him.
Yeah.
Yes. Anyway,
listen. Let me tell you this one last thing. Make sure. There are so many people out there that are curious about how to get to the next phase. And I just want to say this to everybody. We have our people that are in our lives that we talk to. And if you're wondering, like, who do I talk to? Who do I go to right now? Anywhere in the country that you listen to this show or any of the progressive conversations on any platform, whatever it might be, podcasts, all the rest, I would suggest that anybody and everybody sit down and do this very simple thing. You hear us say, stay connected, do this, do that. Sit down and make a list of the people that you care about and that you believe care about you. Mm-hmm. And then take an hour this weekend and text every one of them and just say, hey, what's going on? How you been? How you doing? Yep. It's something that simple. They may be looking for that text. And as we wrap up with Karen today, just take a couple of minutes, take a half an hour and make that list, and then just give a little shout out to people that you care about. You might be surprised.
Yep. We're here. Everybody's out here for, so let's lean on each other and, meditate, do some yoga, eat right.
Yep.
Again, I hope you don't mind, but weightandwellness.com, they've got a podcast, they've got recipes, they got recipe books. It is common sense. It's not like crazy diet, depriving yourself. It's eating eating healthy.
Do me a favor and email that to me, because I've had some people on the text that have asked me about that website again. Say it one more time and then email it to me. Go ahead.
I will. It is weight, WEIGHT, and AND wellness.com.
Okay, got it. Email it to me, because I know some folks want me to get that back out to them, okay? Appreciate you being with us this morning.
All right, thank you. Have a great weekend, everybody. Stay warm.
All right, Karen, be well. Talk soon.
All right, thanks. Talk soon.
All right, Henry, let's go to a quick break, because I know that we've got Mayor Johnson that's going to be with us in the 7:30 hour, 773-763-9278. That's our number. This is Choose Views, and we'll be right back.
It's Chew's Views with Richard Chew on WCPT 820, Chicago's Progressive Talk.
Hey guys, welcome back to Chew's Views. 773-763-9278 is the number. You can also text us your questions and things you want us to ask our guest, and we will do our best to make sure we get those in on each and every show. It's Friday, guys, December, listen to me, Henry, January 2025, and it's been a crazy week, but we are all fighting through and doing what we do, and as always, we want to make sure the train keeps moving forward, and I'm hopeful that we can take the advice of some of the experts, like a Dr. Runge, who has spent years helping people, and he himself said managing his own weight. But in the context and the conversation of making things better for those of us that are in this fight and dealing with this, sort of onslaught from the national administration, I can't just jump past the conversation and the importance of internal health and making sure that we're doing the best that we can to eat and to sustain ourselves in that regard as well. And I don't want anybody to think that we're not paying attention to those who may have any issues when it comes to the monetary part of eating well. I'm fully aware of that. But I also want to make sure that you guys know that we're here to give you the best guidance that we can in that space. So, all right, Henry, do we have Mayor Johnson on with us, or we do? He's having some technical. All right, let's see. He may have to call in directly. Let's see. Let's do this. You know what? Let's see if we can have him call in on the Morning. Happy New Year. Is he there? I hear his voice.
Hey, Happy New Year.
Hey, Mayor Johnson, are you there?
I am. Can you hear me? Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. I can hear you. Yes, I can hear you. There's a certain resonance in your voice that I know that it's you when I hear your voice. So I can hear you. If you can hear me, then that's a good thing. Are we okay? We good?
Yeah, we're good. And we can hear each other. We're off to a great start.
There we go. Hey, you know what, Mayor Johnson, and welcome to the show. First of all, let me do this the right way. Welcome to our show, Mayor Brandon Johnson of the city of Chicago, the great city of Chicago. Thank you for being with us this morning.
You are welcome. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. How you holding up this week? I mean, I'm going to dive right into the deep end of the pool and drag you in with me. But how are you holding up this week? We knew it was coming. So let's not fool ourselves. We knew that this craziness was coming. But how are you holding up in navigating this first week, if you will?
We are strong here in Chicago. It's unfortunate that we have a president who is determined to divide this nation and to, turn back the hands of time. But the city of Chicago is strong. I'm very grateful to have a strong, loving family. We're good. And, my responsibility in this moment is to make sure that we're protecting all of the families of this city.
Absolutely. And I appreciate you saying that. As you know, I'm an advocate of you and the work that you're doing in the administration, and I'm also one that wants to push and encourage you to do the things that you said were important and want to make important to the city and to the region. We saw Monday, literally within a matter of minutes of what I call him the 34 times XCF. That's a 34 times convicted felon. I don't refer to him as President Trump. I know that's probably some of my ego being in that. But this week we saw that individual within a matter of hours, minutes, sign a number of executive orders. And they range from DEI to essentially declaring war at the southern border. And what is it that you are, I'll say, generally doing to push back on some of these specific areas that Donald Trump is signing into executive order, i.e. the DEI, for example, and this, taking away some of the rights of people that are trying to properly enter the country?
Well, the first thing that we did in anticipation of President Trump's executive orders is that we reaffirmed our commitment to the people of this city that we will always remain a welcoming city, a sanctuary city. Our welcoming city ordinance is one that speaks to the humanity of people. There's a complementary state statute, the Illinois Trust Act, that provides that level of support for the entire state of Illinois. You are fully aware of the history of our city as a welcoming city from the very beginning. And I think it's important that we hold to those values, especially at a time, when so many families around the globe are suffering from, U.S. foreign policy, to be perfectly frank. And so the incredible love story of the city of Chicago, established by a Black Haitian immigrant and a Potawatomi woman, both of them understood that the city of Chicago would one day be the global capital of the world. And that's essentially who we are. We are the heartbeat and the soul of America. So, whether you are immigrant or one seeking asylum or, descendants of slaves like my family who migrated from the South, the city of Chicago has been built on immigrants and asylum seekers and descendants of slaves. It's what creates the level of diversity and strength of our city. So that is something that I want to just reassure your listeners and the people of Chicago that our welcoming city status goes well beyond, the initial official document, if you will, by Mayor Harold Washington. It goes back from, our inception. As far as, the threats to equity and justice, as we, come off of the celebration of the life and legacy of Dr. King, who literally put his life on the line and died fighting for, equity and justice. Our country is one of resilience and frustration, right? And so, the frustration is what, many people are expressing, because I think deep down inside, a lot of us know that we are a lot closer to the type of equity and security that marginalized families have long desired, how close we have come to, realizing, that fulfillment of all persons being created equal. And so this concerted effort by this administration to pull apart and disrupt and destroy that which we have stitched together with our blood, sweat, and tears and prayers, that's not something that I believe will be easily broken. And especially here in the city of Chicago, I have one of the most diverse administrations in the history of Chicago. 60% of the folks who serve as civil leaders in my administration are women, 45% of whom are Black, almost 30% are brown. So we have a range of leaders, Black, brown, white, Asian, some with little experience, some with a great deal of experience in my administration, the most diverse city council that we've ever seen in the history of Chicago, where there are, more, women and people of color in key positions. And so,
that's a representation. I mean, this is the thing, and I wanted to give you the space to talk about that. That's a representation of who we are, or who we aspire to be. Not only in the city but throughout the rest of the country, and Chicago is continuing to lead in that. And I've got on the conversation about we're strong here in Chicago. I have to. And I know you probably have had folks reach out to you about this, but I'm going to make you laugh a little bit in this crazy, stressful time. The clip of you this week referencing and the way in which they want to try to get you to go against people who are native to this land. And that's a clip that we can't play because of some of the background music that we can't edit out at this point. But I laughed when I saw that clip because of the way in which you had to manipulate your language so as not to curse when there was a part of you that gave the indication that your fed upness with the craziness had you just about ready to curse on some of these issues of, negatively impacting people with, this land that we occupy. So I applaud you for your dexterity with language this week, because I know you were at a tipping point.
Well, I will say this. I understand that there is a long legacy and history of profane mayors. I'm trying my best to break that cycle. My senior advisor gives me a hard time because that's not necessarily the vernacular that is front and center. But I will say the frustration that I believe that came across in that video is really just a sentiment that many people in the city of Chicago have. It's simply because, look, what people are concerned about right now is being able to afford to live in the city that they love. And that's why we're building more affordable homes. We're going to continue to do that. People are concerned about our young people and will they have access to a fully funded neighborhood school? And, obviously folks are certainly aware that, after the pandemic, that many of our families are still struggling and suffering with our own mental health. And to be the first administration since Mayor Harry Washington to reopen a mental health clinic, and we did that on the far south side in the Roseland community, I'm proud that we are delivering for working people. And so, when you have these, these politicians and, and others who are seeking intentionally to stoke division between people groups, groups that have all been impacted by colonization, it's incumbent upon me as a former public school teacher, to help remind people that, again, this is a city that has been built on the creativity and the diversity of groups all over the planet. And yeah, I mean, I have to keep in mind that at some point, my son, who is in AP government, don't want him to be in class one day and one of his classmates does a presentation and there his father, not necessarily reflecting the best parts of my Judeo-Christian, lifestyle.
Well, I listen. I think that the beauty of that is a couple things. One, you spoke to the issue of why would I, as a black man, turn on others. That's an incredibly important thing for people to hear coming from an African-American mayor of the third largest city in the country, one, and the issue of us working together. The other thing, it showed restraint, which a lot of our politicians seem to be incapable of doing, but you still got your message across. And the third thing, which I find is important, is that you weren't afraid to step into that and take that on. I mean, that to me is part of the components of being a good leader, is you recognize the responsibility to talk about the issue, speak to some of the specifics, but also show a level of restraint in getting your point across. And that's why I found it humorous. I laughed at it, but I also understood that you were trying to meet the moment in that conversation. Let's talk about another moment that we may have to meet. And we know the impending raids. We know that this took place in Rhode Island, in Newark, New Jersey. And your brother mayor in Baltimore has said, essentially, bring it on. So my question is this: how will we deal with this if the doors get knocked on? I mean, and that's a big, broad question, Mayor Johnson. I understand that, but what are your anticipations, if any, of anything coming our way in the near future?
Well, first and foremost, let me just reiterate, my commitment to protect the residents of the city of Chicago. We have a welcoming city ordinance. It's the law, and we will uphold that law. And I'm grateful that our partners at the state, again, a complementary statute that declares the entire state of Illinois as sanctuary. And all that simply calls for is that our local law enforcement will not behave as federal agents. It's just that simple. Our local law enforcement has worked hard over these last couple of years in particular, working to restore confidence and trust. and policing and constitutional policing. My superintendent, Larry Snelling, has done an incredible job of challenging our rank and file officers, our women and men who serve this city, to show up in a way that, again, garners that trust and protects that trust. Anything that would disrupt that operation, I am vehemently, opposed to that. And that's why I'm grateful that we have reaffirmed our status. Same thing as a welcoming city. Same applies for our sister agencies and all of our departments. We will not interfere, aid, or assist in any way with the federal agents. Now, as far as how we are preparing, we are, continuously giving people all the information that they need to know their rights. And that work is being done not just with my administration, but in concert with community-based organizations. Let me just say this last part. Deportation has been a part of executive function for a very long time. Every administration has deported individuals. I mean, I don't think there's a secret, not on this station, the Progressive Talk radio station, where, President Obama deported millions of undocumented individuals. In fact, more in his first term than the first term of President Trump. So this is not breaking news. This is what I call a head fake. Mm-hmm. This is to stoke fear and to incite division so that this administration can move forward with its agenda to eradicate the Department of Public Education. You saw another executive order where, they are putting a pause on civil rights violations and investigations. I mean, these are all real severe threats. Same thing with environmental justice. I reinstituted the Department of the Environment in my administration. This administration, the President Trump does not believe in science and climate change. So we're going to show up for our immigrant community and our undocumented families to assure them that they do have rights in this city. And the ones in particular who have violated the law and have been convicted and not just charged, there are federal laws that gives this president the authority to go after those individuals. And he is not the first to do that.
Right.
And so I just want to make sure that people understand that this, hyperbolic presentation of undocumented individuals in this country, is one to incite fear and division. If this president, my final note on this, if this president was really serious about immigration in this country, he would work with the legislative branch and move in the democratic formation in which this country was designed. There's already a bipartisan bill that the House, Senate Republicans and Senate Democrats agreed upon. More judges to move asylum cases, more support along the border, a clear pathway to citizenship. This is something that was passed in the Senate, was moved to the House. The president, before he was elected, blocked it.
Yep. We
could have real comprehensive, substantive immigration reform policy enacted in this country if this president was actually serious in working with people.
What's so powerful about what you just said is understanding the rules, understanding what people are have already said, yes, let's go forward with this. And to your point, Mayor Johnson, a lot of this, and I said this earlier in the show, just everybody be prepared and be aware that a lot of this is theater, shock and awe, to distract folks from things that are happening that are equally, if not more important, when it comes to other executive orders, like you said about civil rights and economic issues. So, respectfully, I say this not to you, Mayor Johnson, but to people who are listening. You kind of have to slow down and look at what's really going on in front of and behind the curtain so that you understand that some of this is shock and awe. That's not to take away from the pain that people will feel from these deportation efforts and raids. But, we all have a responsibility, I believe, to pay attention to all that's happening on the windshield, not just one corner of it. To that end, are you talking to businesses about the impact because a lot of folks have said and been saying they're worried about how this will impact our economy and economies. But what's been your relationship with some of the businesses on the impact of, Trump's deportation efforts, if you will?
Yeah, thank you for that question. And that's something that I don't believe we spend enough time discussing. We're talking about the billions of dollars of contributions that immigrant families and even undocumented individuals contribute to our overall GDP. When we think about many of the jobs that immigrant families sign up for, I mean, these are the jobs that, move a significant portion of our GDP, particularly around our food industry, hospitality, labor and construction. I mean, there are a host of, aspects of our economy in Chicago that the immigrant community, their contributions are, not just obvious, but are necessary, quite frankly. I've had conversations with mayors around the state of Illinois, and some of these mayors represent red spaces, if you will, far more conservative constituencies than we have in the city of Chicago. And they are desperately looking for workers. And we're talking about, again, hospitality, agriculture, construction. These are jobs that can help sustain communities. And so I've had multiple conversations with business leaders, and we've had joint press conferences going back, to the early part of my administration, looking for temporary work authorization, because these individuals that are seeking asylum in this country, they are not coming here to just kick it. I can tell you that. They're coming to work, they want to work, and there are industries that our immigrant community, could help accelerate its growth. When I think about what we have attracted in the city of Chicago, my first 20 months, talking about $20 billion of new investments over these first 20 months in office. From the southeast side of Chicago, the investment at the old steel site, no investment there in over 30 years. First administration to actually bring development to the southeast side. The 1901 project, that's the one on the west side where the Wirtz family, as well as the Reinsdorfs, are working to expand the footprint around the United Center, building more affordable homes. I mean, these are opportunities to really strengthen and grow our economy. And as I work to build more affordable homes, that's why we're doing that, as we look to strengthen our transportation system so that we can create communities alongside of our public transportation infrastructure to help move people along and to eliminate congestion. All of that is connected, quite frankly, to how we show up for undocumented families, immigrants who want to find a better life here. I think the last note is this. We have to be honest as a nation how our foreign policy has disrupted local economies around the globe. And I know this is not, a very popular position, and, there are folks that probably would advise me against speaking this type of truth, but I was not elected to simply comply with the status quo. I was elected to challenge the status quo and stand up for working families. And when you have foreign policy that has destabilized nations like Venezuela, where 58% of their economy is run on their oil supply, if we're not honest about how those sanctions have forced people out to seek refuge in other places, then we're not serious about truly being the type of empire that we claim that gives us the right to behave in the way we behave. We have to accept the consequences of foreign policy and how that has disrupted the population around the globe. And that's why, as the city of Chicago, I'm helping, not just to create more opportunities for working people, but let's tell the truth about policy. That people were quick to criticize Venezuelans from seeking asylum based upon foreign policy that has disrupted their economy, but people didn't have an issue going to Citgo to get gas, which is fueled by the oil from Venezuela.
Listen, Mayor Johnson, I people know that listen to this show that I'm a supporter of what you just said. Let's get our heads out of the sand and tell the doggone truth. Let's deal with that. You can't fix, just like a surgeon, he or she cannot fix the problem until they get to the core of how that problem originated, because all you're doing is just patchwork, bandages over it without going, that's how we got here. Oh, I see now. And that's one of the criticisms I have of our wonderful, wonderful country. We have to stop doing that. And it takes the willingness and the courage of what you just did to say, no, part of the reason that those folks are coming this way is because we had a hand in the destabilization of where they were born in their origin country. So I applaud you for saying that, because we have to collectively speak to that more frequently and more regularly. As we wrap up, Mayor Johnson, I have a question for you before we get together again in a couple of weeks. What are some of your top issues these next couple of weeks? What are you leaning into? What's on your dartboard?
Well, first of all, thank you for that question. I thought you were going to, ask if the rumors were true, if I was in contention to be the next head coach of the Chicago Bears.
I heard it. I heard it, but you got pushed aside, I heard.
Well, what happened was, there's this conflation of how many Johnsons and relatives I have out there. And it was like, no, it's just not. It wasn't Brandon Johnson. It was Ben Johnson. But congratulations to the Bears and their new endeavor. Look, over the next couple of weeks, I think there are three things that we're going to be focused in on. One, continuing to strengthen our efforts around, Chicago, maintaining our status as a welcoming city. The second thing is I've had great conversations with the leadership in Springfield, had a great conversation with the Speaker of the House yesterday and his team around our priorities as a city. And those priorities are pretty straightforward. We need more support in our education system, particularly our special education, bilingual education, and transportation within our public schools. The second thing that we talked to the Speaker of the House about and his team was our public transportation system. CTA is woefully underfunded. The region benefits from, the CTA and all of the residents of Chicago who rely upon the CTA. So that's the second thing. The third thing, just generally speaking about revenue, there's, a real strong desire from my administration to place strong regulations on hemp and, keep our young people safe. And so that was a conversation that we had just on yesterday. I'm speaking with the Senate president this morning. In fact, that's my next call, the Senate president and his team, to talk about, again, our priorities for Chicago. The third thing, that I will be focusing in on this week, is really, bringing people together around what I have always called the soul of who we are, the diversity of our city. And there are a number of stops that I'm going to make over the next couple of weeks just to reassure, families that as we continue to see these critical investments take hold in our communities, and as we work to continue to drive down violence in this city, that I'm counting on every single Chicagoan to stand shoulder to shoulder in this moment. Let's not point at our neighbors as if they are our enemies. These are the people who want what you want in this city, and that's the opportunity to live freely, to afford and to be safe. So those are the three things, again, making sure that people know that this city will be always welcoming, and again, giving our agenda and making our agenda very clear to the Senate and to House leadership, and then just moving around the community to reaffirm our commitment to build vibrant communities so that we all can feel safe and prosperous in the beloved city, the greatest city in the world.
That's right.
Chicago.
Mayor Brandon Johnson, y'all, this is always a pleasure. I'm so happy that we were able to have you on this morning. Good to hear about your vision in the next couple of weeks until we talk again. Be safe out there, Mayor Johnson, and we look forward to having you back in a couple of weeks.
Very, very well. Thank you very much.
All right. Have a great day. All right, guys. Mayor Brandon Johnson with us as we wrap up this week and wrap up today's show, Choose Views. It's great to be with you as always. It's great to have the guests that we've had this week. Wow, what a power-packed week of folks that leaning into local issues that are affecting us on a regional and national and frankly international level. So I'm proud to be part of that, and I'm really grateful to all of you who listen. It's that day. It's that time. What do we say? Take a deep breath, guys, and make your life count. We'll see you next week.